The message arrived without warning. A simple transmission, sent out into the vast, empty stretches of space, reaching Earth through a broken and distorted signal. At first, it seemed like just another cry for help from a distant corner of the galaxy, one among many humanity had received in the past. But this one was different. This one was desperate. A small alien race, caught in a seemingly endless war with a more powerful and ruthless foe, had sent out their final plea for assistance. They needed help, humanity's help to survive. The message was clear. We are on the brink of extinction. We have no choice but to ask you humans to intervene. Will you save us? The leaders of Earth's governing bodies gathered in secret. The message was broadcast across global networks, reaching the ears of scientists, military experts, and world leaders. They debated fiercely, each side arguing over the best course of action. Some wanted to offer help. Others feared the consequences of getting involved in a conflict that was not their own. What if helping meant risking everything? The aliens were unknown to them. No one had ever interacted with them before. Their message didn't explain much. Who were they? What kind of species were they, and what had led them to this point? Questions piled on top of questions, but no answers came. The only thing the leaders of Earth knew for certain was that they had to act fast. And yet, amidst all the uncertainty, one thing became clear. Humanity was faced with a choice. Would they offer aid, or would they turn their backs on the suffering of another race? It was a moral dilemma unlike any the Earth had ever faced before. The moment was tense. Governments around the world issued statements, some in favor of offering assistance, others in opposition. The debate raged on, but no one could agree. As time ticked by, the weight of the decision grew heavier. But just as Earth's leaders scrambled to find a solution, something far more unexpected occurred. Another transmission came through. This one was not from the alien race begging for help. This time it was from an entirely different source. The message was brief, but it sent a chill down the spines of those who heard it. The words were simple. We are watching you. The message was intercepted by Earth's military systems before anyone had a chance to react. The voice in the transmission was cold, mechanical, and without emotion. It was a warning, a threat. At first, the leaders of Earth thought it might be a mistake or perhaps even some sort of malfunction. But as the days passed, they realized it was no error. Someone or something had been watching humanity's every move. Their eyes were everywhere, and the message was clear. Humanity was not alone in this galaxy. The alien race that had sent out the plea for help was not the only one aware of humanity's existence. And whoever or whatever had sent the second transmission wasn't friendly. Their presence was undeniable. They had come to Earth's doorstep. A sense of fear began to ripple through the population. What did this mean? Who were these mysterious beings, and what did they want? Why had they chosen now to make contact? As the military scrambled to trace the origin of the second transmission, an even darker realization set in. The message had been timed perfectly. The plea for help from the aliens had been a distraction. The real danger was not from the aliens who begged for help, but from the unknown force that had been watching them all along. In every corner of the globe, news outlets broadcast the strange transmission, stirring a sense of panic in the public. What could they do? What choice did humanity have? Their world was about to change forever, and they hadn't even begun to understand who their real enemies were. As global leaders convened once more, the question loomed larger than ever before. Would humanity answer the call for help? Would they risk everything to help an alien race in need? Or would they pull back into their own safe bubble and ignore the warning signs of an impending crisis? The debate continued with little progress made. But then a breakthrough. A series of encrypted messages were discovered, buried deep within the transmission. The aliens had tried to warn humanity in a way they could not fully comprehend at first. The messages were cryptic, but they were there. The aliens were not just asking for help, they were pleading for survival. The cryptic messages spoke of a larger, much more dangerous enemy. A race of beings unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Beings who would stop at nothing to conquer and destroy. As Earth's leaders scrambled to decode the messages and figure out what to do, another transmission came in. This one was more urgent, more desperate. The voice on the other end sounded scared. We don't have much time. They are coming. Please help us. We don't want to die. We have nothing left to lose. The plea echoed through the airwaves, a final cry for help. But it was too late. The decision had been made. The forces that had been watching Earth had already set their plan into motion. Humanity was about to find out the true cost of their choice and whether they were ready for what was coming. Next, the moment the transmission ended, the Earth went silent. A quiet, unsettling calm descended upon the planet, as if every living creature knew something was coming. Something terrible. The world waited, held its breath in anticipation. The strange transmission had come and gone, and yet it left an undeniable mark on the air. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was curiosity, dread, and an unsettling awareness that they were no longer alone. Just hours later, that uneasy silence was shattered by a loud, unmistakable sound. It was unlike anything anyone had ever heard before. A deep, resonant hum vibrating through the atmosphere. It was so loud that windows trembled in their frames and animals went silent, instinctively sensing the danger. Then the sky itself seemed to tremble. A series of bright lights appeared in the atmosphere, moving far too fast to be planes, satellites, or anything known to human science. At first, scientists dismissed it as a natural phenomenon. But that theory didn't last long. As the lights grew closer, their true nature revealed itself. These were ships, massive, sleek, and menacing, their dark forms blocking out the stars as they entered the Earth's atmosphere, their engines roaring with an unnatural intensity. The ships hovered, hovering just above the Earth, casting shadows over entire cities. The sky turned dark, and the sun seemed to disappear beneath the massive black wings of the incoming vessels. Fear swept over the globe in waves, rippling across nations, leaving governments paralyzed. No one knew what was happening or who these beings were. The Deathworlders had arrived. There was no time for diplomacy, no time for peaceful negotiations. Humanity was simply not prepared for what it was facing. These beings, these Deathworlders, were not like the gentle aliens humans had imagined when they first received the call for help. The Deathworlders had no interest in saving anyone. They were conquerors, destroyers, far beyond any power humanity had ever witnessed. The initial response from the global leaders was chaos. Military forces scrambled to defend their countries, sending jets and missiles into the air, hoping to take down whatever they could. But their weapons had no effect. The Deathworlders' ships were invulnerable, impervious to any form of Earth's defenses. The humans had fired upon them in desperation, and the result was disastrous. The Deathworlders responded with a single devastating blast. A beam of pure energy streaked through the air, slicing through military installations, skyscrapers, and entire cities in seconds. The blast left nothing behind but ashes. Humanity had just been given its first taste of the Deathworlders' fury. World leaders quickly realized that resistance was futile. There was no point in fighting a force so advanced, so merciless. The few remaining human soldiers were retreating, and those who had been in the cities, those who had lived through the blast, would never speak again. The planet was left with nothing but destruction and smoke. The Deathworlders did not speak, did not offer any warning before their attack. They had made their point clear. They did not need to negotiate. They were the apex of destruction, and humanity was nothing more than an insignificant blip on their radar. The human world was powerless, and the first strike from the Deathworlders proved that there would be no mercy. As cities smoldered and the smoke rose to choke the sky, Earth's governments were left in turmoil. Leaders who had once been proud and defiant were now nothing more than terrified figures, hiding in bunkers, unsure of what to do. They had begged for help, only to be confronted with a nightmare of their own making. In the days following the attack, the world went into lockdown. Every country was in chaos with no plan to stop the Deathworlders. Some tried to communicate, sending their own desperate pleas for peace, but these messages were ignored, swallowed by the cold, silent void of space. The Deathworlders had no need for words. They came to conquer, not to negotiate. But as the weeks passed, humanity began to realize something even more unsettling. The Deathworlders were not done. No, they had only begun. The Earth's cities were reduced to rubble, but the aliens seemed to be preparing for something more. The world was now a battlefield, and the Deathworlders were preparing to break humanity completely, and yet the real horror had only just begun. Reports came in from scattered survivors who managed to evade the initial attacks. Some of them spoke of seeing strange creatures alongside the ships. tall, armored beings with glowing red eyes and weapons that burned through anything in their path. These Deathworlders weren't just advanced in technology, they were also formidable in combat. It became clear that any human who stood in their way was doomed to be obliterated. The message was simple: there would be no mercy, no retreat. Humanity was being broken under the weight of this alien power. The call for help had been answered, not by saviors but by executioners. And now the real question lingered in the air. Was this truly the end for humanity? Or could there still be a chance to fight back, even if it seemed impossible? For the first time since the alien ships arrived, there was a flicker of hope, a small, quiet whisper in the hearts of those who still believed in the impossible. Would humanity find a way to survive this hellish onslaught, or would the Deathworlders bring about their complete and utter annihilation? Time was running out, humanity was broken. The once proud nations of Earth had been humbled, their cities reduced to smoking ruins. The Deathworlders had shown no mercy, and the survivors could only look on helplessly as their planet was ravaged by a force they could neither understand nor resist. The situation seemed hopeless, but in the midst of despair, something unexpected began to take shape. A small group of survivors, rebels and military defectors from various countries, came together in secret. They had seen firsthand the brutal might of the Deathworlders, and they knew they had no chance of surviving alone. But they also knew one other crucial thing. They weren't entirely without hope. They had a secret, an untested theory that the Deathworlders had weaknesses, hidden vulnerabilities that the invaders themselves were unaware of. In underground bunkers, a team of scientists and strategists worked day and night to unravel this mystery. They had deciphered something in the transmissions they had received from the alien race that initially begged for help. Hidden in the data were fragments of information about the Deathworlders' past, about their history and their technology. It was clear now that the Deathworlders had not come alone. They had come with a purpose to conquer and destroy. But this mission, while seemingly unstoppable, was not without flaw. The team of rebels, led by former military officers and scientists who had once been high-ranking members of Earth's defense network, formulated a risky plan. They believed that if they could strike at the heart of the Deathworlders' operation, if they could hit them where it hurt, they might stand a chance of turning the tide. The plan, however, was dangerous. It was based on untested theories, and there were no guarantees. The rebels and scientists were taking an enormous risk. If they failed, it would mean the end of humanity. But if they succeeded, they could cripple the Deathworlders' operations and buy Earth a chance to regroup. At first, the idea of an alliance was met with skepticism. Humanity's leaders had failed. Earth's military forces had failed. How could a ragtag group of survivors possibly succeed where entire governments and armies had faltered? But as the days passed and as the Deathworlders continued their relentless assault, more and more people joined the cause. The survivors realized that they had nothing left to lose. If they didn't fight back now, there would be no tomorrow. The alliance formed quickly but cautiously. There were no grand speeches or hopeful promises, only the cold reality of survival. The survivors had one goal: to strike at the heart of the Deathworlders' operation and disrupt their plan. They would need to work in secrecy, avoiding the Deathworlders' eyes as they prepared to move against them. As the weeks went by, the survivors trained in secret. The rebels had few resources, but what they lacked in weaponry and technology, they made up for in determination. They had one advantage: the element of surprise. While the Deathworlders had wiped out most of Earth's defenses, they had not anticipated a unified resistance rising from the ashes. The plan was simple, yet fraught with danger. They would infiltrate the Deathworlders' stronghold, an enormous fortified base that had been established in the ruins of one of Earth's largest cities. From there, they would launch an attack designed to cripple the Deathworlders' command center, disabling their communications and disrupting their control over the other ships in orbit. The survivors were led by Captain Lena Harris, a former military strategist who had survived the initial attacks. Lena was no stranger to difficult decisions, having once commanded Earth's defense forces during the early stages of the war. Now she found herself at the head of a ragtag group of survivors. But she was determined. She had seen the destruction the Deathworlders had wrought, and she had made a vow to herself: humanity would not go down without a fight. The Alliance's plan was set into motion. Lena and her team, equipped with scavenged weapons and technology, made their way through the wreckage of the city, hiding in the shadows, avoiding Deathworlder patrols. They knew time was running out. If they were caught, they would be killed without question. But if they succeeded, they might just have the upper hand. The night of the attack arrived, and the tension in the air was palpable. The rebels knew they had only one shot. As they neared the Deathworlders' base, they could feel the weight of what they were about to do. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about sending a message. Earth would not be conquered without a fight. The rebel group infiltrated the base undetected, using the cover of darkness to sneak past the heavily guarded gates. Inside, they found the Central Command Center, a massive structure made of alien materials that pulsed with unnatural energy. The team moved quickly, planting explosives and disabling security systems as they went. But just as they were about to detonate the charges, a massive explosion rocked the base. The ground shook beneath their feet and the sky above them seemed to erupt in flames. The Deathworlders had discovered their presence. Chaos erupted. The rebels fought back with everything they had, using their knowledge of the base's layout to stay one step ahead of the invaders. But the Deathworlders were relentless, and soon the rebels found themselves cornered with no way out. It seemed as if their mission was doomed to fail. Just as all hope seemed lost, a new sound filled the air, the sound of humanity's last hope. A massive fleet of human ships, newly equipped and powered by the combined efforts of Earth's last remaining engineers, descended from the skies. The fleet had arrived. The Deathworlders' initial shock was evident, but they quickly regrouped, determined to crush the final remnants of humanity. But the human fleet wasn't alone. It turned out the mysterious rebel faction wasn't the only group with information on the Deathworlders' weaknesses. As Earth's fleet engaged the alien forces, the rebels activated their final weapon, an EMP that disabled the Deathworlders' ships and weapons. For the first time in weeks, the tide of the battle shifted. The Deathworlders were thrown into disarray, their once formidable forces now vulnerable. Humanity had struck back, and it had sent a powerful message. Earth was not ready to surrender. Not yet. The Alliance had succeeded. But the battle was far from over. The Deathworlders had underestimated humanity, and they would soon find out that the fight was just beginning. The victory, though small, was a spark in the darkness. Humanity had struck the first blow against the Deathworlders, and the impact of that blow reverberated across Earth's shattered landscape. The Deathworlders, though stunned, quickly regrouped. It was clear they underestimated humanity's will to survive. But as the survivors rejoiced, the reality of the war's true cost began to sink in. Humanity's fleet, though triumphant, had taken heavy losses. The Deathworlders' counterattack was swift and merciless. The initial burst of victory faded as the survivors realized the magnitude of the war they were now part of. The Deathworlders' ships were vast, their numbers uncountable, and their weapons were more powerful than any human technology. The human fleet, emboldened by their small victory, moved to strike back. Earth's defense forces had learned to adapt, learning from the rebel faction's tactics and using the weakness of the Deathworlders' ships to their advantage. But even as they gained ground, they were forced to abandon key cities that had once been their strongholds. Earth was being torn apart from the inside, and the survivors were caught in the middle. As the human ships launched their next assault, the Deathworlders retaliated with their full might. Their ships descended on Earth in a deadly wave, unleashing a firestorm of destruction. The human fleet, though relentless, was no match for the firepower of their enemies. Entire cities were wiped from the map in a single strike, and the skies above Earth turned black as the Deathworlders unleashed their brutal wrath. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. A new force entered the battlefield. A fleet of strange alien ships, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, appeared from the depths of space. These ships were not allied with the Deathworlders. Instead, they came from a distant star system, a race that had heard the cry for help sent by Earth's enemies. They too had come to answer the call, but not in the way anyone had expected. The new fleet arrived just as humanity's forces were beginning to falter. The alien ships, powered by technology that far outpaced the Deathworlders, unleashed a barrage of energy that crippled the Deathworlders' ships. The alien invaders began retreating, throwing humanity's survival into question. The new alien fleet, while initially welcomed as saviors, proved to be as enigmatic as the Deathworlders. Their intentions remained unclear, and their presence raised even more questions. Had they come to protect Earth, or were they simply another power seeking to control the planet? While the strange alien fleet engaged in battle with the Deathworlders, the human survivors saw an opportunity. If they could form an alliance with these new, mysterious forces, they might be able to push the Deathworlders back for good. But no one knew if the new alien fleet could be trusted, or if they had their own agenda. Captain Lena Harris, who had led the rebels and now commanded the remnants of Earth's fleet, made the fateful decision to reach out to the alien invaders. She knew the stakes were high, but with Earth on the brink of collapse, she was left with no other choice. Humanity's survival depended on forming an alliance with these new extraterrestrial forces, or face total annihilation. Lena, along with a small group of diplomats and military leaders, made their way to the alien fleet's command ship, which hovered just outside Earth's atmosphere. There was no certainty in this decision, but Lena had seen the horrors that the Deathworlders had wrought. She knew that without help, humanity would be lost. The alien fleet, though powerful, was a mystery. The beings that commanded it were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. Their bodies were sleek and fluid, shifting in and out of visibility, as though they were not entirely bound by the same physical laws that governed the rest of the universe. Their voices, when they spoke, resonated deep within the human mind, bypassing language altogether and communicating directly with the thoughts of their audience. Lena's team was ushered aboard the command ship. The alien leaders, a council of silent figures, observed them from the shadows. They were not hostile, but neither were they welcoming. The tension in the air was palpable as Lena spoke, trying to convince the alien commanders to join forces with humanity against the Deathworlders. "Earth is dying," Lena said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "The Deathworlders came to destroy us, and now they are wiping out everything we've built. We need your help to stop them." The alien leaders remained silent for a long moment, considering her words. Finally, one of them spoke, their voice like a whisper in the air, yet their words felt as though they were spoken directly into the soul. "You call for help, but the balance must remain. Your world is not ready for such interference." Lena's heart sank. Had they come only to watch humanity's destruction? Had their help been nothing more than a cruel joke? But the alien continued, "We will not aid you in war, but we will provide you the knowledge to stand against your enemies. You must prove you are worthy of survival. The Deathworlders' power lies not in their ships, but in the darkness of their origin." Lena didn't fully understand, but she sensed that this was their only chance. "How do we prove ourselves?" she asked. The alien's gaze locked with hers, their eyes glowing faintly. "The truth lies within the depths of your world. Seek what you have long forgotten. Only then will you stand a chance." With that, the alien fleet withdrew from Earth's atmosphere, leaving humanity with no answers, but a cryptic promise. The path to survival was buried deep within the planet's core. As the strange alien fleet retreated, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions, Lena and the survivors knew they had no time to waste. They would have to find the truth, and they would have to do it quickly, for the Deathworlders were already regrouping, preparing for their next devastating strike. The firestorm was far from over. The rebellion had already cost humanity so much. Cities reduced to ashes, entire populations wiped out, and survivors scattered, barely holding on. Despite the brief glimmer of hope that the mysterious alien fleet had brought, the war was far from over. The Deathworlders were regrouping, their forces growing stronger as they rebuilt their damaged fleet. Humanity, now united by desperation, had to face the stark reality of what lay ahead. There was no easy path to victory, only sacrifice. Captain Lena Harris stood at the helm of the remaining human fleet, gazing out at the smoldering wreckage of what had once been Earth's largest city. The burning sky seemed to reflect the chaos in her mind. The alien fleet had provided them with knowledge, but that knowledge had come with a price, an ominous warning. Humanity would have to prove its worth not just to the aliens, but to the universe itself. There was no guarantee of survival. The revelation of the Deathworlders' origin had sent shockwaves through Earth's remaining leaders. The aliens had spoken of a darkness, a source of power that the Deathworlders had tapped into, something so ancient and dangerous that even the aliens themselves had been wary of it. But that knowledge had come with a single instruction: to find the truth buried deep within Earth's core. As the survivors mobilized to seek out this mysterious source of power, they realized that the stakes were higher than ever. The truth they sought could either save humanity or doom it entirely. But where would they even begin? Earth was a planet torn apart by war, its resources depleted and its infrastructure shattered. Any attempt to reach the core would be a monumental undertaking, one that required a sacrifice far greater than any had anticipated. Lena's team, now bolstered by the remaining military forces and the support of the mysterious rebel faction, had a singular goal: to uncover the truth hidden beneath the planet's surface. But this journey would not be without its own dangers. The Deathworlders were watching, waiting for humanity to make a misstep. They knew Earth's vulnerability, and they would stop at nothing to ensure humanity's extinction. Days turned into weeks as the survivors gathered their forces. The new alliance between Earth's remaining military and the enigmatic rebels was fragile at best. Each faction had its own doubts about the other's motives, and trust was a luxury that neither side could afford. But as time passed and the Deathworlders grew more aggressive, the necessity for cooperation became undeniable. The team, led by Lena, prepared to venture into the heart of Earth. The mission was simple in its objective: to locate the source of the Deathworlders' power and destroy it, or harness it for humanity's survival. But the complexity of the task was staggering. The world's core was a place of unimaginable heat and pressure, a place where even the most advanced human technology had no place. Yet the aliens' cryptic message had been clear. The key to humanity's survival lay deep beneath the surface. The journey would take them to the most dangerous and uncharted depths of Earth. As the team descended into the planet's crust, they were forced to confront not only the environmental challenges of extreme heat and seismic instability, but also the psychological toll of being so far removed from the surface. They had no contact with the outside world, no way to know if their efforts were even reaching the core. All they had were their own resolve and the haunting whispers of the alien warning: the truth lies within. Days turned into weeks as the team descended further. Tensions ran high and exhaustion began to set in. The survivors had never faced anything like this before. Beyond the war, beyond the invasion, this was the ultimate test of endurance. The deeper they went, the more they felt the oppressive weight of the planet's core. But still they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the fate of humanity rested on their success. Then, just as they began to lose hope, something changed. The walls of the subterranean tunnels they were traveling through seemed to shift, and the ground beneath them trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the rock as though something ancient and powerful had awakened. At first they thought it was a tremor, but soon the survivors realized the truth. They were no longer alone. Something else was down here, something alive. A voice not like any they had heard before, reverberated through the tunnels, a voice so deep that it seemed to shake the very bones of the survivors. The source of the Deathworlders' power was not a simple machine or weapon. It was something much darker, something older than the stars themselves. The whispers from the depths grew louder, and the survivors began to understand the truth. Earth had been a cradle for an ancient, forgotten species, a species that had once ruled the galaxy before being lost to time. These beings had hidden themselves deep within the planet, their presence unnoticed for millennia. But now their awakening was imminent. The survivors were faced with a choice: leave the truth buried or awaken the ancient force that lay dormant beneath them. The Deathworlders, it seemed, had stumbled upon this force long ago, using it to fuel their relentless conquest, and now humanity had discovered it too. Lena, now more determined than ever, made the decision to press forward. The knowledge the survivors sought was too crucial to ignore, but the deeper they went, the more dangerous the path became. Ancient traps lay hidden, designed to keep intruders at bay. The team had to navigate treacherous paths, avoiding sudden eruptions of molten rock and hidden chambers that seemed to come alive with ancient power.